was clearly a politically inspired case. Number two, they had a deal, and it was scuttled by House Republicans.
Even some members of the president's own party have been critical of this.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it would be par for the course amongst people speaking out and cannibalizing themselves in the Democratic Party who were not consistent or being hypocritical. I think that when Jack Smith threw in the towel, that was all that was needed for the president to pardon Hunter.
When you found out that the president was going to pardon Hunter, were you made aware of this yesterday, just like everyone else?
I had a little bit of advance notice, but not much.
Okay. President Biden had previously been insistent that he was not going to pardon Hunter. What do you think changed?
Well, that's a good question. I have not talked with the president about this, so I would be speculating, but I know that I thought that when Jack Smith basically said he was throwing in the towel on Trump and dismissing both cases, and he was resigning as special counsel, it occurred to me that that's the right time for Hunter to be pardoned. If the DOJ wasn't going to just affirmatively tell the special counsel to do it, then the president should step in.
For people who have not been following this case closely, why do you think that a pardon is justified in this case?
Well, it was clearly a politically inspired case. There's sworn testimony by the current U.S. attorney here in the Central District on the tax case that he was presented the case and he would not prosecute it. They then appointed a special counsel, and the special counsel, within weeks, indicted here in the Central District. So clearly it was political, number one. Number two, they had a deal, and it was scuttled by House Republicans. So I don't know how anybody with a straight face would argue that it wasn't a politically inspired prosecution.
Even some members of the president's own party have been critical of this decision to pardon Hunter. One House Democrat wrote on social media, this wasn't a politically motivated prosecution. Hunter committed felonies and was convicted by a jury of his peers. I'm curious what your response is to that.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it would be par for the course amongst people speaking out and cannibalizing themselves in the Democratic Party who were not consistent or being hypocritical. If you're going to argue that the Trump process, I mean, it just makes no sense. I'll just leave it at that. There's no way that the Trump prosecutions could be dismissed by a special counsel and that you could, with a straight face, argue that Hunter should be prosecuted.
The Trump cases were dismissed by a special counsel because the Justice Department policy is that you can't prosecute a sitting president, right? So that's different than this current situation and then the Hunter.
That's not accurate. The classified documents case was dismissed by a federal district court judge because there's no authority for the special counsel. If you're a Democrat and you argued back in the 90s that Ken Starr and the independent counsel shouldn't have prosecuted Clinton, then have the same amount of intellectual consistency that there was no way the special counsel should be proceeding now. And a judge already ruled that in the case of Jack Smith that he had no constitutional authority. The same applies to David Weiss.
This pardon was written broadly, so it includes not just the crimes he convicted of, but any other offense he may have committed over this time period. Why do you think the pardon was written in this sort of sweeping way?
Well, a cynic might say that the appointment or the planned appointment of Kash Patel generated the expansiveness, but I don't know. I wasn't in the room.
Do you think there were concerns in the White House that with the administration they might try to go under, and that's why he felt like pardon now?
Well, look, it's obvious to anybody who exists in the secular world that Hunter Biden has been a prosecutorial piñata for years. So why wouldn't you make it broader? I mean, if his name was Hunter Smith, by the way, I'll repeat it again. The U.S. attorney, sitting U.S. attorney, passed on this case. The existing special counsel, when he was a U.S. attorney, before he was a special counsel, was willing to resolve the case for 2 misdemeanors. This was clearly a political prosecution from the get-go.
Why do you think, I know you can't speak to, the decisions that the president made, but why pardon him now as opposed to waiting till after his sentencing? What do you think is the significance of this coming now?
I think it's a great way to unify the country and heal the country.
Do you know, too, I'm curious, did he apply for a pardon through the Justice Department, and was the Justice Department's pardon attorney consulted? Are you aware of that?
I'm not in the weeds on that. By the way, why would the pardon attorney in the Department of Justice, when the Department of Justice already apparently declared a conflict, have any input into this?
The special counsel filed court papers in California just a little bit ago, and also in Delaware, opposing the request to dismiss the case, saying it should be just marked closed because there was no defect in the indictment. I'm curious what your response to that and what you think their reasoning for that is.
The fact that they filed these objections and cited the cases which don't support their position supports my position and my observation that it's a completely political prosecution. This special counsel was conflicted and a political pawn from the get-go.
And then because, we have you on camera and people maybe have not been following this as closely as others, when you say this is a politically motivated prosecution, can you explain what you mean by that? Because I think a lot of people will have a hard time understanding how it could be a politically motivated prosecution when it was, prosecuted by the Biden Justice Department. For people who are not familiar with the case, what do you mean by that?
It wasn't prosecuted by the Biden Justice Department. The Biden Justice Department, for whatever that means, passed on this case. Because of pressure from House Republicans, a special counsel was illegally and unconstitutionally appointed, and they revived the case that was dead in the water and had already been passed on. I don't know how you could get more politically motivated than that.
What did I not ask you that you wanted to mention? Anything else that you wanted to add? I'm
trying to think. I did have something else that I wanted to add, but I'll just repeat this. I think that when Jack Smith threw in the towel, that was all that was needed for the president to pardon Hunter.
What does this mean for Hunter? People who are not familiar with pardons, what does this mean in terms of what kind of relief this grants Hunter and what this will allow him to do with the rest of his life?
In the common parlance, it wipes the slate clean, which is what he deserves.
Have you spoken to Hunter yet since he had the pardon? And
I've spoken multiple times, and he's grateful. I'll leave it at that. I don't reveal attorney-client conversations.